you're going to learn about eye anatomy and labeling different parts of an eyeball. You're also going to learn how to use a vector, how to create different outlines that need to be different colors, depending on if it needs to get cut out of the material or if it just needs to be burned into the material using a laser cutter. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing you do is you're going to go over to Teams. You're going to go ahead and download the attachment that I gave you. Click on the three dots, click on download. Now let's go over to Vector. So I'm going to go to Edge, type in Vector, vectr.com. I'm going to click on Login. If it doesn't show your student ID here, you might have to click on Login and then hit the Login button twice. So I'm going to go over here to where it says New Artwork. I'm going to go to Web and then Website Huge. And then I could give this a name. I'm gonna call it iRuler, and then click on Create. Now we're gonna upload that image that we downloaded. So I'm gonna click over here on the left-hand side where the cloud is. And now I'm gonna go over to my downloads folder. Click on the file that we downloaded, click on Open. So while the opacity is set at 100%, we're gonna go over to our layers and lock it. The first thing we do is we're gonna outline these shapes here that you can see. If I hold down Control and tap the plus sign, we can see those shapes a little bit better. So these shapes have to be a red color because these are going to get cut out. Over on the left hand side, we're going to trace Mike here and the eye anatomy using just black. Because this is going to be rastered, it's just going to be a laser that's going to burn this image into the wood, whereas the red part here on the right hand side, this is going to get cut out of the wood. So we'll go over to the pen tool on the left hand side. Some of these are going to be shapes that you could probably find over here in the shapes panel. Otherwise, we're going to have to use the pen tool. So I'm going to go over here to this first semicircle. I'm going to zoom in. So hold down Control, tap the plus sign so I can see a little bit better. And you could scroll up and down by using these bars here. So I'm going to grab the pen tool. I'm going to click, let go. I'm going to go straight down, click, let go. I'm going to break this into smaller parts here. So I'm going to maybe break this into thirds. So I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to move my mouse a little bit. I let go of my mouse. I'm going to click and drag. And then I'm going to go almost towards the end. I'm just going to click and then go back to where I started. So I could probably adjust that last point there by double clicking on it and moving it downward. So this outline needs to be red. I'm going to go over to where it says border. I'm going to click on the black. I'm going to click on hex, go down to where it says RGB. And in that first 0, I'm going to turn that to 255. And that's going to be a certain red that tells the laser cutter where to cut. Okay. This is going to be 0, this one's going to be 0, and this one's going to stay as 1. Now I need to adjust the point size. So over here, from 1, I'm going to change it to 0.1. If I make it any smaller inside a vector, it disappears. Usually this needs to be set to 0.01 for the laser cutter to recognize that this needs to be cut out of the material. But we're going to leave it at 0.1 so we can still see it. I'm going to slide over, and now we can do the star using the pen tool and all these other shapes using the pen tool. So you're just going to do these shapes here and Mike. So let me show you how we're going to start on Mike here. So I'm going to go zoom out. I'm going to hold down Control, tap the number 0. I'm going to click on that original layer, which we could rewrite or rename by double clicking on it. I'm just going to call it image so I know that that's the image. It's locked right now, so I'm going to unlock it. I'm going to go opacity, turn that to 50%. I'm going to lock it. And again, you can rename your layers. This was the semicircle. I can lock that. I'm going to zoom in here on Mike's face so you can see how we're going to do some of this. So you can break this up into different parts. I'm going to go over to the pen tool, and I could start over here on the left hand side. So I'm going to zoom in more. So I'm going to click, move my mouse, drag, and right before I get to that corner, I'm going to let go. I'm going to click. And I'm going to break this up to where I have his first little horn here. And I'm going to click and drag. Click and drag. So that this outline that we have creates a curve. Right towards the end, I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to go to the other side of this point. Click and drag and move my mouse upward. So I'm going to move my mouse a little bit halfway down. Click and drag. I might want to move that point. And we could always add another point there to get that a little bit closer to where it needs to be. So I'm gonna continue. Click, drag, click on the corner, and I'm gonna go back to where I started. So I'm just gonna cut across. Break this into smaller pieces. Click and drag. Click and drag. Again, we could add another point here later. Then I'm gonna go back to where I started. Now this is red. That's not what we want. We want to turn this to black. So you could just click the black option there. Make sure you're inside of the RGB mode and then black. So 000 is the code to turn it all black. Now the only thing we have is a border. We could go over to fills, click on the color, change hex to RGB. And this needs to be 0, 0, 0 if it doesn't change. And now I'm going to click off. So there are some parts here that can be adjusted. I'm going to turn opacity for this layer down. And like I said, we could double click, we could add a point, and we could adjust it so it's a little bit closer to our original design. This part has a little curve to it, so I can add a point there by just clicking on it and then adjusting. And then we have this white part here of the horn of Mike. And I'm gonna go over here to where it says layers. I'm gonna name this first horn, and I'm gonna lock it. The opacity is 50%. We're gonna change that back to 100 here in a second, but let me just show you how I'm gonna create this horn here. So I'm gonna go back to the pen tool. I'm gonna click. This line's pretty straight, so I'm just gonna click. This line's pretty straight, so I'm just gonna click. This is curved though, so I'm gonna break this up, click and drag. Click and drag, and then go back to where I started. And this needs to be filled in white. So we could turn off the border. We could turn on fills, click on the color, go to RGB, and then turn it white. So this layer is above the horn, and that's why you're able to see it. Now, if I moved it downward, it gets grayed out because the first horn is above the original layer. So let me turn this off. Let me show you what happens if some of these are a little bit out of order. I'm going to turn opacity back up, and this is what it looks like. So the inside of the horn is not white because that white part is below. So we need to click and drag up, and we can lock these so that the white part of the horn is on top of the black part. Okay, so you want to keep going, outline this whole mic design, but you also want to label these different parts of the eye anatomy too. So I'm going to go up, I'm going to click on the text tool, I'm going to click on the screen, I'm going to label just this first part, so I'm going to delete, and it's called an iris. Make sure you do this all caps so we can see a little bit better. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to go over here to where it has the text options. I'm going to delete Open Sans, and I'm going to type in Economica. You can just start typing the first words and it'll be selected. And then I also want to make it, instead of regular, I want to make it bold. And you can click off, click, drag a corner, get next to a corner until you see this curve to rotate, and then keep clicking on the corner to scale this up evenly. And just put that first label as close as you can to the original label. Let's pretend that you are done with this design. So after you labeled each part of the eyeball and you've went around all the shapes for the ruler, you're going to go to Export, leave it as an SVG, and then click on Download. That's going to go over to your Downloads folder, and that's going to be the file that you want to attach to Teams. So if you have any questions of which colors these different parts need to be, depending on if it needs to get cut out or if it just needs to be buried into the material, go ahead and let me know.
Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And feel free to watch any of the other related videos.